The body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk. Your body knows when you are lying, not just when you lie to others, when you lie to yourself, when you pretend you are fine when you are not, when you suppress what you actually feel, when you perform a version of yourself that does not match what you actually are. Your body knows, and it keeps a record of every misalignment, every performance, every suppression. And that record does not stay silent. It becomes tension. It becomes illness. It becomes the chronic instability you cannot name but can always feel. Truth is not a moral category. Truth is a physiological one. And when you are out of alignment with it, your nervous system reflects that misalignment with perfect accuracy. Truth is regulation. Most people treat truth as something external, a set of facts, a description of reality, something you either know or do not know. But that is only one kind of truth. There is another kind, structural truth, the alignment between what you actually are and what you present yourself to be, the coherence between your internal state and your external expression. When those two things match, when what is inside you aligns with what you show the world, your nervous system stabilizes, it regulates, it returns to baseline. You experience that regulation as calm, not excitement, not relief, just calm, a quiet steadiness, the absence of friction. When those two things do not match, when you are performing, suppressing, pretending, your nervous system destabilizes. It does not matter whether the performance is successful. It does not matter whether anyone else notices. Your body notices, and it responds to the misalignment as if it is a threat. Because from the perspective of your nervous system, misalignment is a threat. It is a signal that you are not safe enough to be yourself, that the environment requires you to hide, to perform, to fragment. And fragmentation is what the body is designed to prevent, because a fragmented being cannot survive long term. They can perform, they can get through the day, but over time, the cost of fragmentation compounds, the tension accumulates, the body starts to break down, not because it is weak, but because it is carrying a load it was never designed to carry, the load of maintaining coherence on the outside while suppressing incoherence on the inside. This is why people who lie chronically experience chronic stress, not because lying is morally wrong, but because lying creates a split between what is true and what is presented. Maintaining that split requires energy, cognitive energy, emotional energy, physiological energy. The body has to track two versions of reality simultaneously, and that dual tracking is exhausting. The nervous system was not designed for dual tracking. It was designed for coherence, for a state where what is inside matches what is outside. And when that alignment exists, the body can relax, it can regulate, it can return to the parasympathetic state where healing, growth, and integration are possible. The cost of performance. Performance is exhausting, not performance in the sense of skill, but performance in the sense of pretending, of showing the world a version of yourself that does not match what you actually are. Most people perform constantly, not because they are dishonest, but because they were taught that their actual state is not acceptable, that who they really are is too much, too little, too messy, too raw, that in order to be loved, to be accepted, to be safe, they need to manage how they are perceived. And that management, that constant monitoring of how you are being received, it destroys regulation, because regulation requires you to be in your actual state. When you suppress that truth, your body goes into dysregulation. Your breath shallows, your muscles tighten, your heart rate increases. Not dramatically, not catastrophically, but persistently. And persistence is what breaks the body down over time. Think about a time when you had to pretend to be okay when you were not. You suppressed it. You put on the face. You got through it. But what happened in your body? Did your shoulders relax? Did your breath deepen? Or did you feel tight, compressed, like you were holding something in that wanted to come out but could not? That tightness is not random. That compression is your nervous system responding to the misalignment. It is your body recognizing that what is being presented does not match what is actually happening inside. And that recognition activates a stress response, not because you are in danger, but because the fragmentation itself is the danger. Here is what happens physiologically when you perform over extended periods. Your autonomic nervous system loses flexibility. It gets stuck in sympathetic activation. Your vagal tone decreases. Your heart rate variability drops. You become hypervigilant, constantly scanning for signs of disapproval, rejection, judgment. And that scanning consumes energy your body needs for repair, for digestion, for rest, for growth. The way out is not to perform better. The way out is to stop performing, to allow yourself to be in your actual state, even when it feels unsafe, even when it risks disapproval. And when you do that, when you let the performance drop even for a moment, the body exhales, the shoulders drop, the jaw unclenches, the breath deepens. Not because you did anything, but because you stopped preventing the body from regulating. You removed the obstacle. And regulation is what the body does naturally when the obstacles are removed. The body as truth detector. Your body knows before your mind does. It knows when something is off, when a situation is not safe, when a person is not trustworthy, when a choice is misaligned. It sends signals, sensations, gut feelings, tightness in the chest, a sense of unease, a contraction. And most people ignore those signals. They override them. They rationalize them away. They tell themselves they are being paranoid, overly sensitive, irrational. But the body is not irrational. The body is reading information that the mind is not processing. It is detecting patterns, incongruencies, micro-expressions, tone shifts. And it is responding to that information with the only language it has: sensation. When you ignore the sensation, when you override the signal, you train yourself to stop trusting the most accurate truth detection system you have. The mind can be fooled, it can rationalize, it can construct narratives that make misalignment seem coherent. But the body does not rationalize, it simply responds. And its responses are more accurate than your thoughts, your beliefs, your interpretations. When you meet someone and your body contracts, that is information. When you are about to make a decision and your stomach tightens, that is information. The body is telling you something is misaligned. And the more you listen to that information, the more you start to recognize that the body was right. The situation was not safe. The person was not trustworthy. The choice was misaligned. This is not mystical. This is biological. Your nervous system is designed to detect safety and threat. It is processing thousands of data points per second and integrating all of that information into a simple output: safe or not safe, aligned or misaligned. When you learn to trust that sensation, you start to navigate the world differently. You stop tolerating people your body is telling you are not safe. You stop making choices your body is telling you are misaligned. And your nervous system stabilizes because it is no longer fighting you. The suppression cycle. Suppression is not a single event. It is a cycle, and the cycle reinforces itself. You feel something: anger, sadness, fear, desire. And in the moment you feel it, you make a decision, shaped by everything you were taught about which feelings are acceptable. If you were taught that anger is dangerous, that expressing anger leads to rejection or punishment, you suppress it. You push it down. You override the signal. You tell yourself you are not really angry. You are just tired. You are just stressed. You are just overreacting. And the anger does not go away. It lodges in your body, in your jaw, in your shoulders, in your stomach. And it stays there, waiting. The next time you feel anger, the cycle repeats. You feel it, you suppress it, it lodges deeper. And over time, the suppression becomes automatic. You do not even notice you are angry anymore. You just notice the tightness, the tension, the headache, the chronic irritability that has no clear source. That is the suppressed anger, and it is costing you every day in ways you cannot see, but that your body is tracking with perfect accuracy. And here is what makes the cycle so insidious. The more you suppress, the less access you have to the feeling. The feeling does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes unconscious. You stop being able to name it, locate it, process it. And because you cannot name it, you cannot release it. You can only hold it. And holding it requires constant energy. Energy your body needs for regulation, for healing, for presence, for development. Sadness becomes chronic fatigue. Fear becomes chronic anxiety. Desire becomes chronic restlessness. And shame, the feeling that there is something fundamentally wrong with you, becomes the filter through which all other feelings are interpreted. Everything you feel becomes evidence that you are broken, that you need to suppress more, perform better, fragment deeper in order to be acceptable. And the body cannot sustain that. The body was not designed to hold everything. It was designed to process, to feel, to express, to release, to return to baseline. That is the natural cycle. But suppression interrupts the cycle. It stops the processing, and when the processing stops, the residue accumulates. And that accumulation is what breaks the body down over time. Breaking the cycle requires you to stop suppressing, to feel what you actually feel without immediately trying to fix it or make it go away, to let the feeling be present, to give it space, to honor it as information rather than treating it as a threat. And when you do that, the feeling moves. It does not stay forever. It arises, it peaks, and it passes. That is what feelings do when they are not suppressed. They move through you. And in moving through you, they release the energy they were holding. And that release is what allows regulation. This is not about expressing every feeling in every moment. This is about allowing yourself to feel what you actually feel internally, without judgment, without suppression, without the story that tells you the feeling is wrong or that you are wrong for having it. The feeling is just information. It is your body responding to the conditions you are inside. And when you honor that response instead of suppressing it, your nervous system learns that it is safe to feel. That feelings are not threats. They are signals. And signals, when honored, produce clarity. When suppressed, they produce chaos. Coherence as nervous system. Baseline. Regulation is not the absence of stress. Regulation is the ability to return to baseline after stress, to activate when needed, to respond to the stressor, and then to deactivate when the stressor is gone. Activation, response, return, a cycle, a rhythm, not a chronic state. But most people do not return to baseline. They activate and they stay activated. Not because the stressor is still present, but because they never processed the activation. They suppressed the response, they pushed through, and the activation that was not processed becomes residual tension, accumulating over time, becoming the new baseline. You are no longer regulated, you are chronically activated, and you do not even notice it anymore because you have adapted to the activation. You think this is just how you are, anxious, tense, on edge. But it is not how you are, it is how you have become, because you have been chronically misaligned and have not given your nervous system the conditions it needs to return to baseline. Coherence is the condition that allows return. Coherence is when what is inside you matches what is outside you. When you are not pretending, not performing, not suppressing. And coherence is what the nervous system recognizes as safety, not the absence of threat, but the presence of alignment. When you are coherent, your body relaxes, your breath deepens, your digestion activates, your immune system strengthens. Not because you did anything, but because the conditions for regulation are present. And when the conditions for regulation are present, The body regulates automatically. You do not have to force it. You just have to stop preventing it. And what prevents it is misalignment, performance, suppression, the gap between what is true and what is being presented. And the more you close that gap, the more you allow yourself to be in your actual state, without editing, without managing, without performing, the more your nervous system returns to baseline. And baseline is not neutral. Baseline is coherent. It is the state where your body can heal, integrate, grow, and develop. It is the state where all of your energy is available for presence, for connection, for response, for development. Here is what regulation actually feels like. It does not feel like excitement. It does not feel like euphoria. It feels like quiet, like steadiness, like the ground is solid beneath you, even when the conditions are uncertain. It feels like your breath is full, like you can be present with what is actually happening without needing to escape it, fix it, or perform around it. Most people have so little experience of regulation that they do not recognize it when it happens. They think calm is boredom. They think steadiness is flatness. But it is neither. It is baseline. And the more time you spend in that state, the more your body remembers it. The more it recognizes that this is the state it was designed to operate from, and the more it starts to resist the things that pull you out of it. The performance, the suppression, the misalignment. You start to feel the cost of those things more acutely, because you have re-established baseline, and anything that pulls you away from it now feels like what it actually is. Dysregulation, the physiology of lying. When you lie, your body activates, your heart rate increases, your skin conductance changes, your breathing shifts. Not because lying is wrong, but because lying creates cognitive load. You have to track two realities, the truth and the lie. You have to remember what you said. You have to monitor whether the lie is being believed. And all of that tracking requires significant energy. The body experiences that energy expenditure as stress. This is why polygraphs work, not because they detect deception directly, but because they detect the physiological activation that deception produces. The body cannot hide the cost of suppression and performance. And here is what most people do not realize. The body does not differentiate between lying to others and lying to yourself. When you tell yourself you are fine when you are not, your body activates. When you suppress anger, sadness, fear, your body activates. The mechanism is the same. You are creating a gap between what is true and what is being presented. And that gap is what the body responds to. Over time, chronic lying, even to yourself, produces chronic activation. And chronic activation produces breakdown. Not immediately, not catastrophically, but slowly, persistently. The immune system weakens, sleep fragments, energy depletes, and you do not connect it to the lying because the lying feels normal. It feels like how you survive. But it is not how you survive long-term. It is how you survive short-term at the cost of long-term coherence. The difference between truth and honesty. Truth is alignment. Honesty is expression. They are related, but not the same. You can be honest without being in truth. You can express what you believe without that belief being aligned with what you actually are. You can say things that are factually accurate, but emotionally dishonest. You can perform vulnerability without actually being vulnerable. Truth is not what you say. Truth is whether what you say matches what you actually feel, experience, and are. And the body knows the difference. It knows when you are speaking from alignment and when you are speaking from performance. Even if the words are the same, even if no one else can tell, your body can tell, and it responds accordingly. This is why some people can say all the right things and still feel incoherent. Why you can apologize, express remorse, commit to change, and still feel like something is off. Because the words are honest, but the state is not truthful. The expression does not match the internal experience. And that mismatch is what the nervous system detects. Truth requires you to be in your actual state before you express it, to feel what you actually feel, to acknowledge what is actually happening inside you, not what you think you should feel, not what you wish you felt, but what is actually present. And then, if you choose to express it, the expression comes from alignment. It comes from truth, and when it comes from truth, it regulates both you and the person receiving it. Because truth is coherent, and coherence is what nervous systems recognize as safe. Honesty without truth is performance. It is saying the things you think you are supposed to say in order to maintain an image, repair a relationship, avoid consequence. And the body knows. It knows when you are performing honesty. And it does not regulate. It stays activated. Because the misalignment is still present, you are still managing, still suppressing what is actually true in order to present what is socially acceptable. The regulation of truthful expression. When you express what is actually true, when you speak from your actual state without editing, without performing, without managing how it will be received, something shifts. Not just in you, in the space between you and the other person. The nervous systems synchronize. They co-regulate. Because truth is a shared signal. It is something both nervous systems recognize as safe. This does not mean the other person agrees with you. It does not mean there is no conflict, but it means the communication is coherent. It is real. And coherent communication, even when it is difficult, produces regulation. Because both people know where they stand. There is no guessing, no hidden agenda, just truth. And truth, even when it is uncomfortable, is regulating. Think about a time when someone told you something difficult but true, something you did not want to hear. But they said it cleanly, without attack, without manipulation, just the truth. And even though it was uncomfortable, there was something regulating about it. You knew where you stood. You knew what was real. Now think about a time when someone said all the right things, but you knew they were performing. The words were kind, the tone was gentle, but something felt off, and that off feeling activated you, put you on guard, because your body knew that what was being presented did not match what was actually happening. That mismatch is what prevents regulation. Truth regulates, performance activates, and the difference is not in the content, it is in the coherence, in whether what is being expressed matches what is actually present in the person expressing it. And here is what makes this particularly important. When you speak truth, when you express from alignment, you model coherence for the other person's nervous system. You show them, not through words, but through presence, that it is possible to be in an actual state without fragmenting. That difficult truths can be spoken without attack. That vulnerability can be expressed without collapse. That boundaries can be set without aggression. Their nervous system reads that. It registers the coherence, and it responds, not always consciously, but physiologically. They relax slightly. They breathe more deeply. They become more present. Because your coherence creates space for their coherence, your regulation invites their regulation. And that is how coherence spreads. Not through convincing, through modeling, through being in your actual state consistently enough that other people's nervous systems recognize it as safe. Alignment is daily practice. Alignment is not a state you achieve once and maintain forever. It is a practice, a repetition, a choice you make moment to moment in small interactions when the stakes are low and the pressure to perform is high. Most people wait for the big moments, the confrontation, the breakdown, the crisis, and in those moments they try to be truthful. But if you have been performing for years, if you have been suppressing for decades, you do not suddenly become capable of truthful expression in a high-stakes moment. You default to the pattern. You perform, you manage, you fragment. Alignment is built in low-stakes moments, in the small interactions where you choose to say what is actually true instead of what is socially expected. And the more you choose alignment in those small moments, the more capacity you build. The more your nervous system learns that truthful expression is safe. Here is how you practice this in daily life. Someone asks how you are. You are not fine. You are tired. You are overwhelmed. You are frustrated. The default is to say fine, to perform okayness, to manage their perception. But what happens if you tell the truth? Not dramatically, not as a complaint, just as a fact. I am tired, I am overwhelmed, I am not okay right now. What happens? Most of the time, nothing catastrophic. The person hears you. They adjust. They either offer support or they give you space. The interaction becomes real instead of performed, and your body notices. Your shoulders drop slightly. Your breath deepens. The tension releases just a little, because you told the truth, and the truth regulated you. Now try it with a boundary. Someone asks you to do something you do not have capacity for. The default is to say yes, to accommodate, to suppress your actual limits and manage their disappointment. But what happens if you say no? If you honor your actual capacity instead of performing limitlessness? If you let them be disappointed instead of fragmenting yourself to prevent their discomfort? Again, most of the time, nothing catastrophic. They adjust. They find another solution. The world continues. And you notice that saying no, that honoring your limits, that choosing alignment over performance, it regulates you. Your body relaxes. The resentment that would have built from saying yes when you meant no, it does not accumulate. You stay clear, you stay coherent. And that coherence, that alignment, is what allows you to remain present. This is what quiet authority is. Not dominance, not control, not the ability to make others do what you want. It is the capacity to remain in your actual state and hold that truth even when the pressure to perform, to suppress, to fragment is high. That is authority. Not over others, over yourself. The authority to remain coherent when the environment is pushing you to fragment. And that authority, that capacity to stay aligned, it is what produces regulation. Not just in you, in everyone around you. Because when you are in your actual state, when you are not performing, when you are not managing, other people's nervous systems recognize that coherence. They relax. They stop trying to read you. They stop trying to figure out what you want. They can just be present with what is actually happening. And that presence, that shared coherence, is what produces real connection. This is the practice. Small moments, small choices, small alignments. And over time, those small alignments compound. They build capacity. They shift your baseline. They teach your nervous system that truth is safe, that you do not have to perform in order to survive. That alignment is possible, and that alignment, when chosen consistently, produces the regulation you have been seeking through performance, through suppression, through fragmentation. The regulation you thought required you to manage everything, when the actual path to regulation is the opposite. Stop managing. Start aligning. Let your actual state be present, and let the body do what it was designed to do. Regulate the signal your body is sending right now. Pause. Right now, not later. Now. Notice your body, not what you think about your body, what you actually feel. Is there tension somewhere? Tightness in your jaw? Compression in your chest? Shallowness in your breath? That is not random. That is information. Your body is holding the residue of misalignment, the accumulated cost of all the times you performed when you wanted to be real, all the times you suppressed when you wanted to express, all the times you said yes when you meant no. That tension is not a problem to fix. It is a signal to listen to. And the more you listen to it, the more you start to recognize the pattern. The situations where you perform, the people around whom you suppress, the contexts where you fragment, and once you recognize the pattern, you have a choice. Keep performing, or start choosing alignment. Alignment does not mean saying everything you think. It does not mean being brutally honest in every situation. It means being in your actual state and making conscious choices about how to express that state in a way that honors both your truth and the reality of the situation you are in. The body knows the difference. It knows when silence is suppression and when silence is coherence. And it responds accordingly, with regulation or activation, with coherence or fragmentation, with calm or tension. Truth is the foundation of development. You cannot develop what you are not willing to see. You cannot grow beyond what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot build coherence on top of suppression. Development requires truth, not as a moral imperative, but as a structural necessity. Because development is the process of becoming more of what you actually are. And if you do not know what you actually are, if you are too busy performing what you think you should be, you cannot develop. You can only refine the performance. Refining the performance is not development. It makes you better at lying, better at suppressing, better at fragmenting. But it does not make you more coherent. Truth is the foundation, the willingness to be in your actual state, to feel what you actually feel, to acknowledge what is actually happening inside you without immediately trying to fix it, change it, or suppress it. Just to be with it, to let it be true. And when you do that, when you stop fighting your actual state and start inhabiting it, something shifts. The body relaxes, the nervous system regulates, the energy that was being spent on suppression and performance becomes available for presence, for connection, for development. You do not have to become someone else. You just have to stop pretending to be someone you are not. And that shift, small as it sounds, is the foundation of everything that follows. Because you cannot build coherence on top of fragmentation. You cannot advance while defending a false structure. The version of yourself that matters, the one that is capable of development, of depth, of coherence, has been here the entire time, waiting. Not waiting for you to become worthy of it, waiting for you to stop suppressing it, waiting for you to recognize that it is not something you have to achieve. It is something you have to allow. And allowing it is not passive. It is active. It is the choice, made moment to moment, to be in your actual state instead of the performed state, to feel what you actually feel, to express what is actually true, to honor your limits, to say no when you mean no, to stop when you need to stop, to speak when you have something to say, to be silent when silence is true. That is the practice. It is not comfortable. It requires you to disappoint people, to tolerate the activation that comes from breaking the performance. But the alternative is dysregulation, chronic, persistent dysregulation. And once you understand that the cost of misalignment is higher than the cost of truth, the choice becomes clear. Not easy, clear. And clarity is what allows you to choose alignment even when alignment is difficult. Because you are no longer choosing between comfort and discomfort. You are choosing between fragmentation and coherence, between performance and presence. And when the choice is framed that way, when you understand what is actually at stake, alignment stops being optional. It becomes necessary. Not for moral reasons, for survival reasons. This episode did not come to convince you. It came to place you. If something in you recognized this, not believed it, not agreed with it, but remembered, write "I awaken" in the comments. Not as a signal to others, as a signal to yourself. The hierarchy responds to readiness, and readiness is always internal.